Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of For My Sisters with Delle podcast, and particularly another segment of Delle's Dose. These segments are designed to give just quick motivation and encouragement to help you in various areas of your life, your faith walk, all the things. And so today I want to talk about discernment. And what we're not going to do going forward is continue to suppress our discernment. We're not going to continue to play ourselves, gaslight ourselves by suppressing and ignoring our discernment. A lot of the time, God has already shown you, the Holy Spirit has already alerted you to what you need to see about a situation. But what ends up happening is that you suppress your discernment by giving the benefit of the doubt. You suppress your discernment by talking yourself out of it because of what other people might think, what other people might say. And then you end up walking straight into a situation where the red flags, the signs were already there. And I always tell people there's no benefit in a doubt. Like, think about the last time you gave the benefit of a doubt in a situation. How did that turn out for you? Like, be honest with yourself. And maybe it turned out well. Maybe it turned out extraordinary. It's not always a fail. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's the thing about life. Nothing, for the most part, is like a complete black and white. There's almost always exceptions to the rule. But think back to majority of the times you gave the benefit of the doubt. Like, if you're being honest with yourself, you probably were like, dang, like, I did notice that beforehand. Dang, like, this did occur or this was said or whatever. And now you're looking back, kicking yourself because you're like, wow, like, I really could have known this, or I already knew this, but I decided to ignore it for whatever reason. And society kind of gets us that way because, I mean, think about, like, the honesty and innocence of children. When we're children, we just be like, hey, it is what it is. I saw this. I think this. I saw, this happened. So it's XYZ. Like, I look at my son. My son is 8 right now. And he don't be given the benefit of the doubt. Like, what he sees is what he sees. What he thinks is what he thinks. Like, he's not afraid to express that and be honest about it. And it is what it is. But as we get older, we're all of that straightforwardness, all of that trusting of our gut and all that is like suppressed because you're told like, oh, well, it could be this, it could be that. Oh, well, be more gracious and this, that, the third. And again, I'm not saying don't extend grace to people. I'm not saying don't ever give the benefit of the doubt. But this is where also discernment kicks in because you have to discern when that situation calls for a certain thing. But what I'm saying is a lot of the time, the red flags have been there. The signs that you need to see are there. But because you don't trust yourself anymore, because you are a people pleaser, because you feel like you're being too judgy or too harsh or whatever the case may be, you suppress your discernment and then you find yourself in a situation or in a circumstance where it's like, wow, like, I kind of already saw the signs and here I am knee deep now dealing with it because I suppressed it. Why did you suppress it in the first place? Those feelings that you get, that uneasiness you get, that's the Holy Spirit. Y'all, I can't stress this enough. Like, as we go forward, utilize your discernment. That is how the Holy Spirit alerts us to things. And don't force it. If you get a feeling about something, do not force it just because you want it to come out a certain way. Do not force it because you want to give the benefit of the doubt to somebody and apply yourself in the situation. That's one of the fastest ways to disappoint yourself and to really play yourself, is to apply what you would do, what you would say, how you would react to someone else in a situation because you want to see in them what you possess. That's the fastest way to disappoint yourself. Like, I know for me in my younger days, when I used to do that, I used to be kicking myself after the fact. And it's like, well, maybe this person's going through maybe this person's going through XYZ and they're just handling it like this. Cause I know I tend to do that. I know I tend to act a little weird when this is happening or whatever. I know I can isolate when this, that, the third. Whole time that person is betraying you, they're being deceitful, they're plotting against you, they're doing all this stuff, but you're thinking of yourself like, oh, well, I know when I get busy, my communication gets a little sketchy. Maybe work picked up for them. Whole time they are literally plotting against you with your enemies. Whole time they are literally trying to put out witchcraft against you and do all types of foolishness and demonic stuff. And you're sitting here giving them the benefit of the doubt. You sitting here playing yourself by muting your discernment because you already had that feeling. And that's why they say you should go with your first thought, because 9 times out of 10, your first thought is the right thought. You know that man is entertaining other women, but here you are. Oh, maybe work picked up. Maybe he's busy. Baby girl. Like, he's entertaining other women. Like, come on. All of a sudden the communication just went left. Like, nah. Let's be real about that. All of a sudden this friend is acting a little sketch. They all of a sudden got a weird attitude with you, or they're bringing up certain things and talking to you a certain way and all that. And you're like, oh, maybe they're just dealing with a lot in life. What? You deal with a lot right now as we speak, and you still are being a friend to them. Like, stop doing that. We're not doing that anymore. You are hoping for a situation to turn out a certain way, and maybe it was going well, and then all of a sudden things start to get a little weird. I'm gonna give a story about that in a second. And you're like, okay, like, it's weird. I have an uneasy feeling about it, but I'm gonna keep going forth with it. Now you're knee deep in a situation 6 months down the road, and you're like, dang, like, I should have known from the moment that this happened that I should have left it alone. Like, y'all, I got 2 stories about this actually. So one of them is something I'm going through right now. So I don't know how it's all going to turn out, because I actually have I have something I have to do today that would allow me to see like more of how this is going to turn out. But basically, I'm in the midst of moving right now as I'm recording this podcast episode. And so I already have the place secured from a distance and such. And I'm like, okay, everything's cool, whatever, whatever. Now, mind you, when I first got the place, I had asked the property manager, like, do you need certain things from me? Because I just know, like, that's the run of things, right? And this is like a privately owned place. So I just know, like, that's standard procedure. So I was like, do you need certain things from me? Certain documentation? Is there anything I need to fill out? Like, this is just how things go. So the person was like, oh, nah, like, you good. Just send me XYZ. So I send XYZ, and I carry on with my day, my month, what have you. So now, as I'm speaking right now, recently, in the last few days, this same property manager reaches out to me and is like, hey, like, can you provide XYZ? Like the same stuff that I had basically asked weeks prior, do you need? Can you provide XYZ? So I'm like, okay, no problem. And they're asking me questions that I had already answered weeks prior. So now I'm like, okay, that's a little weird, but I'm like, hey, there's a lot going on right now. It's the holiday season. We're approaching the end of the year. Like, maybe this person just got a lot happening at one time and they just need a refresher. Because to me, there are certain things that I just don't forget. Like, if you tell me, especially when it comes to business, like if I'm managing a property and I tell this person, like, you got this place, I'm going to remember stuff about them. Like, oh yeah, they work here. They do this. They do. Like, certain things in my mind just stick out. It doesn't take much, you know? And so I was like, hey, I'll give the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, they got a lot going on. So later on, like a couple hours after that initial phone call, they call me they call me and they're like, hey, like, they're asking more and more questions and probing, and there's like an uneasiness there. And now they're telling me that there's somebody else that needs to talk to me because of this and that and the third and blah, blah, blah. This business partner, and I'm doing air quotes, came out of thin air, was never mentioned in the beginning, never brought up. None of this hoopla was brought up, nothing. So again, I expect that certain things are going to be asked for in the process. But now when you're backtracking and you're coming back and these things are popping up and these people are popping up and these protocols are popping up out of nowhere, my red flag alarm is going off in my mind. I'm like, ding, 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 this is weird. Like, now my antennas are up. Like, okay, this is a little bizarre. So like I said, I'm still in the midst of this situation, but I gave that as an example because what a lot of people might do, because their mind is already set on this particular place. Because let's be real, moving is hard. Okay. Like, moving is hard when you're in a place that you like, you want to stay there. In my situation, I have to move because they're selling the house I live in now. But when you find a place that you like, you're like, I want to stick with that. I don't want to keep searching. I don't want to keep having phone calls. I don't want to keep paying application fees and this and that, the third, whatever comes with the territory. And so you're like, okay, like, I'm just going to stick with this. So now you can find yourself giving the benefit of the doubt and suppressing the discernment that you're picking up because you want that place. So because now that my red flags and my antennas are up, I can allow my own desires to make me suppress my discernment and say, well, I like this place. They said the place is mine. I'm going to suppress my discernment. I'm just going to do whatever. I'm going to go with whatever they say to do. Despite how uneasy it makes me feel, despite how alarming it might be, despite how red flaggy it might be, I can suppress my discernment and go ahead. But then what could end up happening? Months later, I can be in a situation where I have a terrible property manager. I have a terrible landlord that I have to deal with because now I ignored the things that I saw 6 months prior. Now I'm in the place. I can't just up and leave because I'm bound by a contract. And so now I'm in a stressful situation. Now I'm kicking myself like, dang, like, why did you go forth with that? You should, at that point that it started, that the red flag started to appear, you should have found a new place at that point. You should have backed out of the situation at that point and said, you know what, don't worry about it. Thank you, but no thank you. Because this ain't my first rodeo with moving. I've moved quite a bit in my life throughout different areas and stuff. And so one thing I've learned, especially when it comes to big things like moving, the minute something starts to look a little off, feel a little off, leave it alone, because you're going to get in a situation and you will regret yourself, the decision you made. That happened to me when I was pregnant. I regretted taking that place with my family. Like when I said that was a place from hell, there were so many defects in that home. We had to go through the court to get out of that place. We got our money back because I don't play that. And I actually had my real estate license, so I knew the jargon and saying stuff like that. But I was just like, oh nah, like we gotta go, But the thing is, we saw those red flags, but because I was pregnant, I'm like, I just want to settle down. You suppress the discernment and you go forth, and now you're kicking yourself. This is what I say, like, stop playing yourself. You already saw what you saw. You know what you need to know. Believe it. Like what Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And I would say the same for a situation. When you see what a situation is, believe it. Stop talking yourself out of the discernment that you already saw. Like Holy Spirit literally put it right in front of your face on a platter. Like, here it is. This is what you need to see. And you're sitting here, well, maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. Girl, get it together. You already saw what you needed to see. You already saw what you needed to see. Same thing like another housing situation with my parents when we were, well, not we, because I didn't have no money in the game at this point, but when my parents were building my childhood home, gorgeous home, they worked hard to build it and stuff. But there were so many red flags leading up to that process of just like the lending and things like that with the first lender that they had, that by the time they woke up and realized, like, you know what, this is not good, it's like he had already done so much damage to their credit report. So in the buying process, it delayed the process because now they have to like go back, fix things to get better lending rates and this and that and the third. But it's like, part of that is that they also didn't know, because the house buying system in America versus like in Guyana, where my family is from, is different, especially back then. So I can understand them not really knowing everything, and it's hard to find certain information. Like it really is when you're in another country. So I'll give them some grace with that. But let's just say, had they known, like maybe if they found the knowledge sooner, or if someone had shared the knowledge. This is why sharing is caring, and you can't be afraid to share. Too many people gatekeep, thinking that sharing information is going to harm them or block their blessings, which is such a lack mindset. That's such like poverty mindset and a lack mindset to be like, oh, if I share this information, this person gonna get ahead. What? Like, that's dumb. So nevertheless, y'all, there were things that popped up in that initial process with that first lender. Like I said, that first mortgage broker that was like, ooh, okay, this isn't good. But by the time they caught it, it's like so much damage had been done. So now it delayed the process. It delayed the breakthrough, and it caused unnecessary trials, versus had they noticed it or known to notice it beforehand, it would have spared them the backtracking and the redirecting and correcting and all these things. So stop suppressing what you see. Stop suppressing what is right in front of your face, and utilize that discernment. Go with your first thought. When that feeling comes up, like I said, that uneasiness, and you're like, this is a little weird, go with that. Like in my story that I told y'all, is still unfolding, but trust and believe, after I go through these next steps that they're saying they want to go through, if I continue to have an uneasiness about it, if they continue to give me red flag energy, I'm going to be like, I'm good, and I'm going to find another place. Do I want to do that? No, but I'm not going to put myself in a situation because I suppress my discernment just because I don't want to have to go back to the drawing board, quote unquote. So let's stop doing that. Utilize your discernment. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. Accept that a spade is a spade. And just keep it moving from there. Move accordingly. If you got to interact with that person, move accordingly. If you don't have to, then stop interacting with them. If you have to entertain this circumstance or situation, then move accordingly once you discern it. But if you don't have to, then course correct. Go in a different direction. But stop playing yourself. You already saw what you needed to see. You already heard what you needed to hear. take it accordingly and move accordingly. That's one thing about me. Once I see and hear something about someone, I'm going to move accordingly. And those people are going to notice, but do I care? No. Like, they're going to notice that, like, oh, yeah, she's falling back. I am. Could you show me your real character? I don't want no parts of that. You show me what it really is. I'm good. Thank you. I thank God for showing that to me, and I move accordingly. So utilize your discernment and stop playing yourself. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. Don't forget to share this episode with a friend. Check the show notes and let me know, how are you going to utilize your discernment more? Do you struggle with that? Do you talk yourself out of things? Do you find yourself giving the benefit of the doubt too much? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will talk to y'all in the next episode. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of For My Sisters with Delle podcast. Don't forget to keep the conversation going and use the hashtag #ForMySistersPod on social media so I can see you and show you some love. If there are any topics you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, be sure to email ForMySistersPodcast@gmail.com. I'll see you on the next episode. Love you. Bye.